Welcome, everybody, to Intentional Grounding, a football podcast based out of Baltimore, Maryland, made by fans for you fans. We all are fans. My name is Mike Woodard Jr. I'm one of three co-hosts. I'm also joined by Costa Vianis and Tyler Spittle.
What's going on, everybody?
How are you guys doing?
We're doing good.
Yeah? So...
Got a great little present last night, didn't we?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, as we all know, the biggest event in the NFL offseason besides the draft just happened.
I don't know. I think some could argue this is bigger than the draft.
Maybe. Well, well, either way, let's just say a lot of us were on our computers the other night or with our notebooks writing WL next to our favorite team's schedule. So, the NFL schedule was released, and we need to talk about it, don't we? Since
I guess so.
That's the thing. That's generally what you do on a podcast. I'm not sure. I've never done one of these before.
Wait, you talk about things? I thought you just looked at them.
No, normally.
We send telepathic messages to people.
Okay, so let's get right onto it. We're going to go week by week and basically point out the matches that we think are either marquee matchups or some unique sleeper matchups. Basically ones that would be interesting. So let's kick it off. Week 1, let's start off with Tyler. Give us a matchup that you think would be most interesting for week 1.
Well, how else are you going to go except for the kickoff game? Green Bay at Seattle. Hail Mary Part 2.
Called it.
Yeah, Mike did call it.
I think we had that discussion a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. I totally called it. I am so glad that they didn't go with Broncos Seahawks. I'm very glad that this was the choice instead.
Though they aren't waiting very long, though, to get to that
true.
rematch. So they didn't make it late in the season.
Right, well, which is, what, Tyler, you point out how that could have been bad if, one of the teams were suffering by midway through the season.
That was actually my point.
Oh, was that your point?
That was
my
point.
Sorry. My bad. I remembered it wrong.
Give credit
point.
where credit is due.
All right, fine. So that was your point. So, you're right. They did it in the right way. They did it so it's early, so both teams will probably still be competitive. I would hope so in week 3. So, you're... Packers-Seahawks obviously is a rematch of the Hail Mary from a few years ago. That was an awesome game, and I actually just watched it on Game Rewind not too long ago, and that's a lot of fun. So that should be a lot of fun to see. Costa, do you have one for us for week 1 besides Packers-Seahawks?
I have a couple, but probably the one that sticks out the most outside of the kickoff game would be Colts at Broncos.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I had that written down.
I mean the last time they played last season, it was in Indianapolis, and Andrew Luck got the better of the master. So, now that they're in Denver, I'll be interested to see how that plays out because both teams have done a lot this offseason to get better. More so the Broncos and the Colts, but the Colts have still made some big additions on the defensive side of the football. So I'll be very interested to see how that game, because really, I mean, if the Colts come out winning this game, then...
Oh, that's a huge tilt in the AFC battle.
Well, right. Well, people have already been asking, like, are the Colts a Super Bowl favorite this year? Like, in Andrew Luck's 3rd season, is he ready to take the Colts to that next level, past the first round of the playoffs, type of deal? And this Week 1 game could be a statement. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting.
I totally agree with you there. I had that written down as definitely one that I am going to have extreme interest in. The only one I'm going to add on that you guys didn't mention is the 49ers at Cowboys.
That was the other one on my list.
Oh, was it? Yeah, that's going to be so interesting because 2 years ago they faced off against each other, and the Cowboys won that in overtime, right? It was a catch by, I think he's not even on the team anymore, but Jesse Holley or someone like that made the catch late in overtime, I think, and the Cowboys actually won. That's when the 49ers were turning around with Jim Harbaugh and all that, so... To see this matchup play out again, the Cowboys start off strong, normally. They generally tend to start off strong, so that should be a lot of fun to see against the 49ers.
Well, there's also the chance that Tony Romo won't be ready for Week 1 because he had his back surgery. So there is a chance that, because if Romo's not playing, all of a sudden this game feels a little less exciting to watch.
That's true.
But there have been rumors swirling around, though, that Jerry Jones might be looking to find a way to get Johnny Manziel in a Cowboys jersey, which I'm doubting. But could you imagine, though?
He would have to pull off a lot.
I know, but could you imagine, though, if because I wouldn't put it past Jerry Jones to try something like that, to make the big splash blockbuster trade in the draft
to
to
be
get
the Sonny Weaver.
right.
But the only problem though, they just signed Tony Romo to that huge extension last year.
I know that's the only reason why I don't think it's plausible, but I wouldn't put it past. No one ever really knows what Jerry Jones is thinking on a given day. So
yeah.
And I just want to throw this out there. I had a sleeper game that could pinch. Like some people might like me raise an eyebrow at this one, but I had Raiders at Jets, only because these two teams have made a lot of changes this offseason. And even though both teams, the Jets went 8-8, the Raiders went what? They won 5-11, or
I think they only won 4 games.
4-12.
I think they went 4-12.
But I mean, both teams have gone through a lot of changes this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see, how, like I said, it'll be your week one to see how these teams will play. Get to see maybe how get an early look.
Vick might be the leader of the Jets or Geno Smith.
Yeah.
So we'll finally get the answer to that question.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's week 1. Let's move on to week 2.
Mm-hmm.
And Costa, I'll let you kick off, but I have a feeling I know which one you're probably going to put.
Oh,
first.
you gotta. Oh man. Yeah, week 2 you get the Steelers at Baltimore.
Oh, absolutely.
One of the probably, right next to the Seahawks and 49ers, the biggest rivalry in the NFL right now.
Mm-hmm.
This early in the season, it's going to be a huge matchup. It's always a physical game, always decided by less than 10 points. So no matter how these teams, look by the end of the season, both games that they play against each other are just going to be absolutely physical and down to the wire.
And the interesting thing is too, it's a Thursday night game and this is made possible because now CBS is dual broadcasting the NFL Network games, so that makes it very intriguing, especially in the future when they're probably going to expand CBS's coverage probably to the whole season.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would imagine, of Thursday night games. So that just brings up a whole range of new possibilities with the schedule.
Yep.
So Costa, he covered Steelers Ravens. What do you got?
For me, I'd say one of the matches I'm interested most in is probably the Philadelphia at Indianapolis game.
Mm-hmm.
I have that
Since,
written down.
That's there. It'll be interesting. We should see if Philadelphia gets up to the fast start they did last year, and if Kevin Cobb remains the same, and then Indianapolis.
Nick Foles, yeah.
Tyler just took us back.
If Kevin Cobb were the quarterback, it wouldn't be a very interesting game.
No, it would not.
It wouldn't be on the list.
Tyler just took us back about 4 years. More than that.
No, but that game's going to be a shootout.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, go ahead. I think that's why it's going to be the most interesting.
Eagles will go up by 28 at halftime, and Andrew Luck's going to charge them on back. It's at Indianapolis, so it's going to happen. And they'll come back and they'll win.
Cool. So Eagles at Colts is a good one. I put down Chiefs at Broncos. Now, last year, and I know that seems like a weird choice, but last year, I was never convinced by the Chiefs. They went on that 9-0 start, and they steamrolled all this inferior competition. And I said, wait until they face a real team. And, we said how the Chiefs might regress this year based on how their offseason has gone so far. I'm putting this down because I think it'll be interesting to see, because this is right at the beginning. They don't get an easy schedule this year. They have a rough schedule this year, and it starts off right away. Instead of getting the inferior competition last year, we're going to see immediately if the Chiefs can actually hold up in an early bout with their division leader and, of course, the leader of the AFC last year. So I think that has at least potential to be a good game. It could go either way, but I just think that's one to at least keep an eye on.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that, or
I mean,
any of your other?
Honestly, I didn't put that one on there because to me, since because of the way the Chiefs ended last season and the way their off season's gone so far, they just don't seem like an interesting team at all to want to watch.
Okay.
I think that the points you made were absolutely spot on about this is an opportunity for the Chiefs to try and prove themselves,
right?
To try and show that last season wasn't a fluke. But when they played the Broncos last season, they got their asses handed to them rather handedly.
I would be interested in that more if it was the switched one where it's their home game, and that way they have just a little bit more advantage. So that could be. So that way, if the Broncos do come out as strong as they were last year, Chiefs might have some upper hand. But also,
Let me just throw this out there too, and another reason I bring it up too is because you have to imagine they'll probably take at least one of those games. Of course, that's what we thought last year too, and they played Broncos close the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another reason. But go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was going to go on to my sleeper pick for that week. Would be Arizona at Giants.
I had the exact same sleeper
I
pick.
actually did not have that on my list.
Because I'm saying, this is of course if Arizona plays like they did last year where they got 10-6, then I'm predicting the Giants have a bounce back year.
Me too.
And go back to the 2011 year type of thing, or even some of 2012 they did better.
Mm-hmm. I definitely think it would be interesting because Arizona's definitely a team that you got to keep an eye on this year. They were one game away from being in the playoffs.
Well, you mentioned Arizona. The two other games I have on my list for week 2 actually involve the two favorites in the NFC West. I have the Seahawks at San Diego at the Chargers, and then the Bears at the 49ers.
Yeah.
See, those were the two games because the Seahawks actually come out early in the season with 3 really tough weeks. Mm-hmm. I mean, they have to play. They start kickoff with the Packers, even though it's at home.
It's still
it's still
they
Aaron Rodgers and the Packers.
Lost that game.
Yeah. Then of course in the opening, and then they go to San Diego against the Chargers. And honestly, I would not be surprised if the Chargers won that game. I mean, the Chargers were a playoff team last year, and they haven't really lost anything this offseason as far as like key players. So they could probably put up a decent game with them. Then of course week 3 we'll get to that, but they play the Broncos then week 3.
Right.
So the Seahawks have a very tough opening to the season. And then the Bears play the 49ers. Of course, the Bears were a very strong offensive team last year, playing against a tough 49ers defense. So the AFC West could very well start off. I mean, maybe the Cardinals are, in the lead in the West early on because of the tough games that the 49ers and Seahawks have to play.
Definitely would be interesting. The Seahawks' schedule is brutal. I mean, you can only expect that being Super Bowl champions. So.
Same for the Broncos have it done. I was thinking 49ers.
Right.
I don't know why I said Broncos. Good, continue.
Okay, so let's move on to week 3. Mm-hmm. So I'll kick this one off. Now, I have to preface this because it's going to come up a lot. I'm going to bring up a lot of NFC East teams because I've said this before. I think that it's just going to be shootouts all year because only the Giants improve their defense. So I'm starting off with Redskins at Eagles.
Yep.
Because, I mean, let's face it, Deshaun Jackson's revenge game and 2 what should be potent offenses going up against each other. And let's face it, no one's stopping anybody in this game.
No.
This is going to be a shootout from wire to wire.
Over under 70 total points in that game.
So yeah, I can see it. Like a Cowboys Broncos game from last year. Yeah, I could definitely see that happening. So that's the one that I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye on. Costa, I think it's your turn.
Yeah, I've already mentioned Broncos Seahawks. We already know why that game's a marquee matchup, Super Bowl matchup. So I won't even. Yeah, I won't even. We really don't have to go too much into that one. I have 2 others on here. I have another. Actually, the other 2 ones I have on here are divisional matches. But I'll only say one because there's a chance Tyler might have it. But Packers at Lions.
Oh, that's.
I have on my list just because the Lions are seriously always on the verge of just breaking out and being a really great team, or at least offensively anyway. And their defense is no slouch either.
That's true. They have a good defensive line, Fairley and Sue.
And both teams, I look at them on paper, they're like evenly matched to me now. So this will be an opportunity for either team to kind of get an early leg up in the division. Mm-hmm. And even though both teams, the Lions have a better defense than the Packers do, but I expect it to be a high-scoring affair as well.
Okay, fair enough. Go ahead, Tyler.
So one of my picks for that week is, and this might be the other divisional match you're talking about, San Francisco at Arizona.
Yes.
Yep, I had that as well. Yep.
Because especially since it's going to be at Arizona, I'm pretty sure I remember that Arizona won their home game against San Francisco last year.
I think they did.
Yeah, because I remember they definitely won the home. No, they won the away game against the Seahawks.
Right, that was late in the year when the Seahawks were kind of faltering a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but San Francisco, Arizona. Like if Arizona does, this will be their chance to really show that we're here. We want this division title just as much as you two do. Seahawks 49ers and you and the Rams in the corner there.
Poor Rams.
Although that does bring up that my sleeper that week was Dallas at St. Louis.
Oh, okay.
That if St. Louis comes out, that could be an interesting game where they could show that we're competitive too.
And that is a game they could win. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, for as good as Romo plays sometimes, there are some defenses that get the better of him. The Rams could easily be that team.
Well, the Rams,
better of them.
depending on how they approach the draft and what players they come out with and what they do with the rest of their offseason, I kind of look at the Rams as being like Detroit light, kind of in a way, because they have a really good, strong core of young players. Sam Bradford just hasn't been healthy,
Right.
kind of like Matthew Stafford, where you think that you think that if Bradford actually gets a whole healthy season under his belt like Stafford has, then maybe he could actually be a productive quarterback.
That's
and
true.
Zach Stacy, rose up as a strong rookie running back for the Rams, and of course Tavon Austin kind of he was a little quiet at the start of the season and came on towards the end. And so who knows, if they add another strong rookie receiver or something like that, then maybe their offense is a little more potent and maybe they actually make some noise in the NFC West.
And also Jeff Fisher has a good defense resume, just like Jim Swartz did.
Yeah, and isn't Greg Williams their defensive coordinator officially now? Or no. Yeah, he's on the Rams, isn't he?
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah,
Yep.
and Greg Williams had some great defenses before the bounty scandal.
Yes.
So that's another interesting aspect. And are we good for week 3 then? Should we move on to week 4, or did we cover everyone's
I think we're good.
picks? Okay, so Tyler, I'm gonna let you kick off week 4. Most interesting.
All right. There was a couple games here to pick, but I'll do my homerism and say Carolina at Baltimore.
The blood and guts game.
Okay.
Blood and guts game, and also, since for Baltimore, for those who don't know, start week 1 to 3. Bengals, Pittsburgh's, Browns. So week 4 will be our first non-divisional game.
I have the Panthers and Ravens as an honorable mention
Same here.
for that week, as because of the revenge factor. Costa, give us yours.
Oh man, there were a couple of them.
There were actually. I had trouble. I had to scratch one out.
I think for this one, I had the other one was Eagles at 49ers.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you just see here's the thing. Like with this game, it's either going to be a shootout or it's going to be a 49ers blowout, because the 49ers have a very physical defense that might be able to bully the Eagles around a little bit. Like we don't know. Like maybe the Eagles' offense will be as high powered as we're expecting it to be, and maybe they're able to put up some points against the 49ers, but it's at San Francisco, and but it's interesting though, because like I said, high powered offense against one of the tougher defenses on the road. So this will be an opportunity for the Eagles to really show what their offense is capable of, if anything at all.
Yeah, and I had the Packers and Bears as well. Bears. I think that would be a great matchup to see, because Jay Cutler should be healthy, hopefully, and if Aaron Rodgers is healthy. Because really, we didn't get to see a whole lot of the Packers last year without Aaron Rodgers. And when he did come back, he made some magic happen for the Pack right at the very end of the season. So I think that would be an interesting matchup to see. And and plus they also had Julius Peppers was taken from the Bears and put on Green Bay. So that's another also revenge factor.
Before we move on, I also want to throw out Saints at Cowboys.
Okay, cool.
That was one I had on my
I had another one too.
Go ahead. Yeah. Well, Saints at Cowboys. I mean, again, if Romo's there, if Romo's back and healthy and playing, then this will just be another really high scoring.
Saints at Cowboys.
Saints at Cowboys.
Okay,
yes.
then that makes it more interesting.
Yeah, it makes it a little more interesting.
When they're away from home, that makes it more interesting.
And this will be a good opportunity for the Saints to maybe show off their new secondary. They got Jarius Byrd, so I mean, this will be a heavy passing game. So it'll be interesting to watch if all the marquee players are playing.
And then one other pick I had for a possible sleeper is Buffalo at Houston, especially because early in the season is usually when Buffalo gets that strong start and then they falter later. So this would be another game where Buffalo and Houston could both get out to strong starts, and this could be a type of game where they both start out 4-0, and then this is one to
Right.
give one of them their first losses.
Okay, yeah, it could be one of those tilts.
Yeah.
Or shifts in power or balance, whatever. So I also put the Giants at Redskins based on the fact that, again, I believe the NFC East is going to be track meets most of the time, but the Giants actually have a defense.
Mhm.
And Deshaun Jackson has sometimes ruined the Giants all on his own. If you remember a few years ago, that punt return. Right, yeah, exactly. So I think that will be an interesting game. So,
I have one sleeper.
Or you have one more?
My
Okay,
one
go
sleeper
ahead.
for week
Go ahead.
4, Lions at Jets.
That could be interesting.
That, again, depending
I
on...
think any Jets game could potentially become a sleeper depending on how their offense goes.
I think because with this game, it's like, see, when I look at this game, it has the potential to be a shootout or a potential to be a really low-scoring game.
That's true.
I mean, granted, though, the Jets' secondary is kind of broken at the moment. They're young and inexperienced, so Stafford and Calvin Johnson could just have a feasting day on the Jets offensively. But the Jets obviously have gotten a lot faster on offense. And of course, they've upgraded the passing game a little bit. So, depending on how things play out in the draft and how the early season goes, that could be a good one to watch.
Okay, cool. So let's move on to week 5 then.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I think I let Tyler start the last one. So Costa, give us your.
I'm gonna say for this one, week 5, I'm gonna go with Bengals at Patriots.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the Bengals have I guess no, I think they have a moderately a balance of easy and tough opening the season. But, the Bengals haven't done a whole lot.
That's true.
This offseason. They've lost more than they've gained. And they're going up against a Patriots team that's done a lot. And, you'll get A.J. Green against Darrelle Revis and get that matchup going. So this will be a chance for the Bengals to maybe show that they haven't regressed. It's definitely an early marquee matchup for them.
I will say my one thing about the game, and this is why I put it down a bit further down on my list, is that I feel like that could be a reverse sleeper game, where it's a game that sounds interesting that could end up, becoming kind of like an actual lame game, because the Bengals have had a tendency, especially in primetime games, to not show up.
Last year, though, they held the Patriots to, only 3 points when they played? The Bengals-Patriots game was, it was, I think, 17-3 Bengals. So that's just something
was
to
that
add.
was that at Cincinnati or New England, though?
I think
it
that
was
was at
Cincinnati.
Yeah, because
In
an away game at New England.
But this will be a big opportunity for Revis to show he's still got it by going up against one of the best receivers in the league. So
yeah, that's true. Tyler, give us one that you had.
All right. So another one had. Let's see. I'm gonna go with Chicago, Carolina. Because
I didn't have that.
neither did I.
Carolina, and this happened last year also, where one of their bigger advantages is where they where they play based on where the other teams in their conference are. Because a lot of the AFC, a lot of them are really centered on the East Coast, whereas the NFC are a bit more spread out some.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the NFC North is all up in the Midwest area.
Mm-hmm.
So, when a team like Chicago has to take that extra travel time, get down to Carolina, it adds a bit of an advantage to them. And also, of course, if Carolina, if they manage to, do close, get something close to what they had going, last year, that could be an interesting matchup. And of course, Chicago's always a wild card for their division.
Yep. So, for my list, I put on one that none of you have mentioned so far, and I said Texans versus Cowboys.
That was on my list, but I scratched it off.
Oh, was it?
It was.
See, I think it could have the potential to go the other way depending on how the draft goes.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I still have a belief that the Texans will take one of the top quarterbacks,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sorry I'm going to give this away now. I still believe that's Johnny Manziel.
Mm-hmm.
But so if Johnny Manziel does stay in the state of Texas, that makes that infinitely more enjoyable of a game. Manziel versus Romo, and actually Romo is the QB that Manziel has gotten compared to a few times this offseason.
I've heard a little. I mean, for people who have more history of the NFL, a lot of people say Fran Tarkenton.
Oh right, yeah. But
Isn't there another quarterback who's compared to Romo a lot in this upcoming
People
draft?
said when Romo originally started early in his career with the Cowboys, they said they compared him to Brett Favre.
No, I'm saying a quarterback in this draft that's being compared to Romo.
Oh, Garoppolo.
Yeah, that's
because he
it.
came from a small Division II school like Romo did.
Okay, well, and like I said, it could go either way. But I mean, let's face it, the Cowboys aren't going to have a great defense either way. So I think there's potential there for it to be interesting. And then let me roll off another one real quick. I also put Chiefs 49ers as one of those other
I had that and scratched it off as well. Because Alex Smith returning to San Francisco really didn't excite me nearly as much as it might other people.
Okay.
Because it's been a couple years. It's like one of those things. It's not like Deshaun Jackson returning to Philly literally at this quickly. There's been some time in between. So.
Well, and let me, just to finish off mine, I wrote down Bucks at Saints, but I'm gonna scratch that because I realized that that's at Saints, and I didn't kind of think of that when I was writing down my notes. So I'm going to scratch that and move my honorable mentions back up. Cards at Broncos. The Cardinals versus the Broncos. I think that will be a very, very interesting matchup. But again, we keep mentioning with Cardinals on the up and up, going against the highest powered offense in the AFC last year or in the NFL. So Costa, if you want to, or if you guys,
I've got a couple more on my. I mean, honestly, no, I'm surprised no one's else mentioned the other three that are on my list for this week. No one.
I mean, was about to.
Well, I'll let you. I know the one you want to mention probably, so I'll save it for you. Okay. The other two I have Seahawks at Redskins as one.
Playoff rematch from 2 years ago.
Playoff rematch, and just getting a chance to see this kind of like. I don't want to say new Redskins offense, but when you throw in Deshaun Jackson, it's a new offense.
And with Jay Gruden leading
Jay Gruden in charge. So to see them go up against probably the best defense in the NFL, will really be a good test for the Redskins, and it's at Washington, so it's not nearly as tough as if they were going into Seattle, but still nonetheless a tough one. And then I had a sleeper one, Rams at Eagles. Was my sleeper matchup.
Interesting.
Yeah, because this game will hands down be the Rams defense could be better, but this will probably be another maybe track meet potentially, with all the players on both offenses. So it could eventually play out to be an interesting game.
Yeah, and you probably predicted that I was going to say Baltimore and Indianapolis.
Of course.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I mean it'll be the first time that Ravens will play Andrew Luck since the playoff game. Actually, the second time in total that they're playing.
And the first time against him at Lucas Oil Field.
Yeah, but isn't this will be the third time the Ravens have played Luck? No. Only the second time?
They only because Luck was a rookie that year.
Yeah, but
in the Super Bowl year.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and they didn't play him last year.
Oh, we didn't. Okay.
Right. No,
okay. Sorry. All right. Yeah.
So
only
the Colts last
year. Okay. Yeah. So that was the other one I had on my list. That would be a good game to watch.
See, I tried to be as objective as possible. So
But it's still a good matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing wrong with your guys' pick.
I didn't put Baltimore at Jacksonville or anything.
Oh right. No, and good as you shouldn't. So okay, I think we covered week 5.
Yep.
So let's move on to week 6. Let me kick this one off. What we were saying earlier about the Bills starting off early, I actually had them Pats at Bills, and the Bills, this is their only chance to take a real good shot at the Patriots at home because really they don't really always do that well in New
the Bills always seem to play the Patriots close. They're
not as close.
Well, we'll see. The tendency in past years is that the Bills will take a modest lead against them. They'll be up by maybe 10 at halftime, and they blow the lead to the Patriots.
That's true.
They've won a handful, or they've won a couple games the last few years against New England, but it seems like Buffalo always shows up to play New England, but they just can never finish.
Right, and that's the thing. The ones that they have finished have been in Buffalo for
Right.
the most part.
Mhm.
I mean, I think they did get their hearts broken last year
Yes.
when Amendola did his only great performance of the season. But otherwise, yeah, I think that's an interesting match. Tyler?
All right, so on week 6, let's see. There's a couple here that I liked. I think one I'll spotlight is Chicago at Atlanta. You know,
Interesting.
similar feel to the Chicago Carolina one. Chicago is always a wild card like this time of year, and this is a home game for Atlanta. So even if they don't get up to the full power offense that they've had 2 years ago, they'll still give them a pretty even matchup.
That's true. Yeah. Costa?
One of the ones I have is Redskins at Cardinals.
I had that as an honorable mention.
I had that
Yeah.
was a sleeper that week.
Yeah, that was a sleeper matchup. It's just like, 'cause I think it'll actually be fun to watch the Redskins play. Like I said, that Deshaun Jackson factor, their offense will be interesting to watch. And also there's still that offensive defensive matchup of Jackson against Patrick Peterson.
Yeah.
So that'll be really, really interesting to watch. I mean, I'll probably tune into that one when it comes on. But yeah, just that offense in general will be fun to watch.
Cool. I had Colts at Texans as being one as well.
Okay.
Because being just one to keep an eye on. Again, my line of thought is the Texans might have Manziel. So if that's the case, then that makes this an infinitely more interesting matchup. And then just to mention it, I also had Giants at Eagles for the same reasons I've mentioned about the NFC East. Who wants to? Tyler, you want another one? Or go down the rest of your list?
Yeah. Guess the only one I didn't pick up yet is again Cardinals at Cincinnati. Carolina.
Carolina.
I just had the CAR. So.
See, I don't have Carolina on for any of the weeks at all. Like, I don't have any of the weeks with them because after everything they lost in the offseason, and
I guess I'm just more like I have more faith in them to sort of not be that bad. I guess.
I'm not expecting them to be bad, but
I don't see them repeating as divisional winners again. But I think they're be in the mix for a wild card spot.
Yeah, I mean maybe.
I'm more on the line. I can see why you would still want to, because several times when I saw the Panthers, I thought, no.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was a little bit more on that side, but I can understand that thought. It's like, oh, you think the Panthers are going to be so good? I think they'll regress a little bit. Maybe not so bad, but I do think they'll regress.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of did avoid a lot of Panthers. Did you have anything else?
That's pretty much it. And then same deal with Cincinnati, that they could be huge, or they could just regress by that point. And that'll be one of those big games that could look back at the year I guess a big opponent that Cincinnati failed to beat. When it comes to the playoff time, because that usually happens.
Might come back to bite them. Go Costa.
Just a couple to wrap up my list. Cowboys at Seahawks.
Oh, okay.
Who knows? The Cowboys, if they're on their early season hot streak, maybe they could squeak out a win at Seattle potentially. And then the other one I have is Broncos at Jets.
Okay.
This is if the Jets start off well enough, even if they're a game over 500 at this point. This is a put up or shut up game seriously, because even though it's only week 6, you got the Broncos coming to you. You're not going to them. You've got to be able to beat teams like Denver if you're gonna go anywhere. In the AFC. So.
And that's logical, but I think the Jets will get steamrolled.
Maybe, but they've done a lot this offseason.
That's true.
Put your money where your mouth is and do work.
Fair enough.
So
fair enough. You're a little bit more optimistic.
Well, I'm not. Listen, I'm just saying this. I'm not saying the Jets will put up a good fight. I'm saying that they kind of have to.
Right. Yeah.
Which is why it'll be interesting to watch to see if they decide to show up or not.
Anything else on your list, or
not week 6? I'm wrapped up.
Okay. Yep. All right. Week 6 is done. On to 7. So, Tyler,
Well, whatever.
Costa, give us yours.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's get the big one out of the way.
Yeah, the big one, 49ers or Broncos.
Yeah.
That's the big one. I mean, seriously, it seems like all the top teams from last season are playing each other during the regular season this year.
Oh, absolutely.
They're going to be beating each other up. So really, these will be some very, very decisive games to kind of give you an idea of who's who, this year. And what better way? Because the 49ers were a Super Bowl favorite last year. So, I mean, this could very well be a Super Bowl preview, to some people. So it's going to be one hell of a game, I'm sure.
Tyler?
Yeah, so for this week, one of the ones I had was New Orleans at Detroit. Because, of course, this will be an away game, so New Orleans won't have their, the advantage they get from being at home. Of course, they're still going to be at a dome, so it'll definitely be a, high-flying game, points all around.
Of course, yeah.
So that'll definitely be a shootout and a great fantasy game.
Fantasy points for the win. Okay, so I put the Jets at Patriots.
Yes, that was also on my list.
Okay, good, because obviously the Darrelle Revis factor. Obviously, this is the Jets going to the Patriots, and so we'll have the reverse game later.
How about it for the Jets to get the Broncos and the Patriots in back-to-back weeks early in the season, not even halfway through the season.
That's going to be rough.
Seriously, yeah, this is their opportunity.
Oh, absolutely.
They've got to do something.
Mm-hmm. I mean, now, and granted, I do kind of think the Jets might not get this.
A short week too.
Right, yeah. I think it's more
Thursday.
likely that the Jets probably lose this Patriots game, but if Michael Vick is the starter, it makes the QB matchup very interesting. Michael Vick versus Tom Brady. Let me just go down the last one since that I had was Chiefs at Chargers. I thought would be interesting that week too because what did I say a few weeks ago? The Chiefs got into track meets last year, and that Chargers-Chiefs game last year, when the Chargers beat them on a last-minute touchdown, that was a fun track meet to watch.
Yeah,
so,
that was one of my sleepers for that week, especially because that'll be a game that that later on might end up deciding their division rankings.
Oh, absolutely. What else did you have that week?
What else I had? I also had, of course, Atlanta at Baltimore. Battle.
I don't put any stock in that. Like, I've stopped thinking about the whole Matt Ryan, Joe Flacco comparisons.
You may not, but other people still will.
Then they're wasting their time. They've already played each other before. It's not like this is the first time they've ever.
Well, yeah, but this will just be the first time at the bank.
Yeah, of course, but Flacco's got one of these though, so that
Costa's pointing to his
ring finger,
for people who cannot see.
Yeah,
aka everybody listening to this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just saying.
Atlanta won the first regular season bout, so now time to tie the score.
And that's fair. That's fair because they do still get compared over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And it's like their fates are constantly linked no matter what. I think even in the report about Joe Flacco being the 9th highest paid player, he was still linked to Matt Ryan even in that report. So it's just it's going to be constant. But I do think that the Matt Ryan supporters lost a lot of leverage when Flacco won the Super Bowl.
I just think it's a bit overplayed in some cases.
and that's fair. Costa, what was left on your list?
The only one I left on my list was Giants at Cowboys. Pretty much for all the same reasons you've mentioned. Any NFC East matchups. I mean, because that's going to be such a tight division from beginning to end. Every time they play each other, it's going to be a crucial game. So you've got to pay attention to them.
Yep, fair enough. All right, Tyler, kick us off with Week 8.
I was trying to decide which one I want to go. You know what? I'm actually going to pick what I had put as my sleeper because I think this is interesting. The Detroit at Atlanta at London.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that was on my list.
Oh.
Yep, the London
an interesting
game.
thing I just found out is that game is actually having 9:30 a.m. Eastern time start. So that day you can get from 9:30 all the way up to 11 at night. Four games of football. 4 full games of football.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and of course these are two great teams. So hopefully the jet lag doesn't hit them too much, and that can be a really good game that might decide seeding later on if Detroit returns to what they did 2 years. Was it 2 years ago or was it 3?
It was. They didn't make the playoffs a lot this past year.
No,
they were really bad the year before. So it's been at least 3 years
now.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. That makes me really want to wait for
week 8
now. Darn it,
Football
halfway
all
through
day.
the season.
October 26th, right? Mark on your calendars.
Will do. All right, Costa.
All right, my there are actually a few other really good games this week, but the one I'm actually gonna be most interested in watching is not Packers at Saints. That was on my list, but actually Bears at Patriots.
Oh,
Why?
interesting.
Because the Patriots have 2 brand new corners. Got Darrell Revis and Brandon Browner. They got to go up against Alshon Jeffrey and Brandon Marshall. If you don't want to see that matchup, then you aren't a football fan. I'm sorry. Even though Breeze and Rodgers playing against each other is just as entertaining, I'm actually throwing a bone out there to wide receivers and corners, saying
Nice.
that'll be a really, really interesting matchup to watch.
Very cool. I wouldn't have thought of that one. I did put Packers at Saints on my list because, let's face it,
yeah.
out of all the teams that could go to New Orleans and possibly give them a loss, wouldn't it be Aaron Rodgers and the Packers? Wouldn't they have enough offense to overcome the Saints?
Yep.
I think that would be it. So, yeah, I did have Packers and Saints.
But I'll say, Drew Brees is my favorite quarterback in the NFL. Love the guy, but I got to show a little love to the receivers and
I
DBs.
also had Colts at Steelers.
Yes, that was
Yeah.
on my list as well.
There you go.
That finishes up my list.
Oh, okay. There we go. And then I also did put Ravens and Bengals because at this point in the season, this could be like a pivotal game in the AFC North, depending, of course, how everything shapes out. The Ravens face 3 divisional all 3 opponents in the first 3 weeks, and then there's a little bit of a break. And now this is really going to be what sets the leader of the AFC North. So I think that'll be a good matchup.
Yep.
And the last thing I had on my list that hasn't said, and I can understand why, again, is Seattle at Carolina. Because this is possibly the farthest away that Seattle's going to be traveling this year. And so,
Yeah.
Seahawks away from home have been not as good. I mean, they did win some big ones, but not.
Yeah. Okay. I can agree with that. Yeah.
We can advocate for that one. Okay, so that wraps up week 9. We're moving right
week
along.
8.
Or week 8, sorry. Moving right along to week 9, as I was about to say.
Can't
Freudian
miss out
slip
week
there,
9
sorry.
because we got some juicy matchups.
We got
we do.
some
We got a couple.
big matchups on week 9. Let's state one of the obvious ones. Ravens at Steelers.
Yep.
I mean, no matter what, these Ravens-Steelers games are always
that's just crazy. The Steelers, the Steelers, Bengals, and Ravens, they all wrap up their games with each other by week 9.
Yeah. The AFC North is going to probably be determined by then.
Yeah,
most likely, because then they only have one divisional opponent after that. So.
Ravens only have Browns at the end of the season.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly, and that would
Yeah.
be the same for the Bengals and Steelers.
So
as well.
early in
And
the season, a lot of important games to get a leg up in the division. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, and even last year, the Ravens and Steelers both only went 8-8, but still, everybody remembers that Thanksgiving game. That Thanksgiving night game was fantastic. So this is going to be another fantastic game. Costa, what's the next one you got?
The Brady and Manning Bowl.
Yep.
Of course.
Did they say
16th?
16th?
16, not 60th.
That would have been 16th.
No, 16th.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it was actually really interesting because they made a point. Like they said, years ago, Elway and Marino only played each other, I think, like 3 times in their careers. You're talking about 2 really great quarterbacks that played simultaneously, and here we are, Manning and Brady. This is their 16th time going head-to-head. Brady's gotten the better of Peyton more often than not. But the Patriots have beefed up their secondary, so this is going to be a fight to the end.
But the Broncos beefed up their defense, too,
They beefed up their defense as well, too.
They stole Akeem Talib, and now they're going to be putting them against the Patriots.
That too. That too. I mean, it's... Yeah, that'll...
A lot of storylines beyond just Brady.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Tyler? What you got?
So with those 2 big ones out of the way, geez, what am I going to pick? I think I'm going to go with San Diego at Miami, because that could be a game that if Miami could be one of those dark horses, because last year they almost they were close to playoffs, but didn't win the games that they needed.
And they have made a lot of improvements on their team, so they very well could be hanging around.
West Coast going all the way to the East Coast could give Miami a advantage and this could pay off later on. Because like last year, Miami and San Diego were fighting for that spot, but I think it was based on tiebreakers because I don't think they ever played each other during the season. So if they end by playing each other, that could decide something later on.
Fair enough. I had Colts at Giants as my third one.
I had that on my list as well.
Yeah, I think that'll be. I think the Giants are much improved this year. I think they'll be, just like Tyler said earlier, bounce back candidate at least.
Oh, and
this year.
Hakeem Nicks returns to New York as well.
Awesome. Where he faces his predecessor, who was re-signed to the to the Giants, Manningham.
Mm-hmm.
At both, yeah. So, and then honorable mention real fast. Rams at 49ers, because I had to give a throw out to the Rams.
Yeah, I mean the Rams will
still
be interesting.
tough, but the Rams play tough.
Yeah.
So,
I have this
ahead.
is as sleeper as you can almost get for a scheduled game.
Uh-oh.
Buccaneers at Browns.
Whoa!
Wow.
Okay, that's the one I jumped over.
Right. Well, here's the reason again, because I'm looking at it as a standpoint where you have two teams that have done a lot this offseason and two teams that are going to do a lot during the draft. So I would not put it out of the realm of possibilities that one of these two teams is like one of those outliers that is, fighting to keep itself in the playoff discussion. Even though it's just a little bit past the halfway point in the season, these will be really interesting games to see, these two teams that have improved so much play against each other.
Mm-hmm.
So
Interesting.
It's just that factor alone, because like I said, both teams I know will have very interesting drafts. So you also probably get to see some really high-profile rookies as well compete against each other. So that wraps up my list.
Tyler?
Yeah.
Anything else? Or
My only other
covered?
one list was New Orleans and Carolina. We've been
Oh my
gone
goodness. Moving on to week 10. Tyler, kick us off with week 10, shall you?
Okay,
Please.
I'll start out with San Francisco and New Orleans.
I had
That'll
that.
be a huge matchup.
Yep.
San Francisco going all the way over to New Orleans, so it'll be interesting to see how well their defense handles, the travel time and then going against Drew Brees.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Costa.
I am going to say Giants at Seahawks.
Oh, interesting.
Because honestly, this is another scenario where you have a team like the Giants who we expect to bounce back from last season. They're on the short list of teams with like Atlanta and Houston, who we expect to be much improved. And granted, playing at Seattle is tough. But again, this is a situation where a team really needs to show and prove that they are back, that they are better. I mean, they don't even necessarily have to win, but they have to keep it close. They really have to put up a fight and make the Seahawks work for that win at home, because they rarely ever have to work to win at home.
Right.
Normally the Seahawks just coast. When they play at home. So that'll be really interesting to watch.
Okay. I have Falcons at Bucks as an interesting game. Because I do believe that the Falcons will be better than their record was last year. I really do. I mean, they might not be like, a jump to first candidate, but they're still going to be competitive.
Yeah, it's like I said, they probably won't go as high paced octane that they were 2 years ago, but they'll definitely do better. I mean, I don't think they'll have as much injury problems as they did last year.
Yeah, exactly. Getting Julio Jones back and Roddy White healthy again, and depending on what they do in the draft, and facing the Bucks, who are, as we've said, a much improved team than what they were before. So that should be interesting. Plus, the divisional game late in the season, so that will also help turn the tides. And then I also had Bears at Packers.
Yep, on my list as well.
Okay, great.
A marquee divisional matchup.
Yep. I said that with hesitancy because I did have the Bears at the Packers at Bears earlier.
Yeah.
But
I had a similar thing.
Yeah, it's just you can't help it. The matchup's going to be so good.
I mean, really, no disrespect to the Vikings, but they're really the only team in that division that you look like. Yeah, they're probably not going to do a whole lot of anything this season.
I have a single Vikings. Oh no, I do have one. Never mind.
But
I do have one Vikings game down. I think I know which one we all have down.
Yeah. But
go ahead and finish us up with your.
Yeah. So
Costa,
my last game for Week 10 is a sleeper game. I have Dolphins at Lions.
Awesome.
Reggie Bush gets to play against his old team. Granted, it's not in Miami; it's in Detroit. But the Tyler's mentioned the Dolphins already. They could be, as they were last season, a team that's really fighting for at least a wild card spot. And the Lions, I'm expecting them to be really competitive in the NFC this season. So, even though they're in separate conferences, they're both, every game matters. At this point in the season, when you get past the halfway point, all of a sudden every game matters that much more. And these two teams will be fighting to try and keep up with the rest of the teams in their division. So it'll be really interesting to see how that game ends.
And my last pick, which also was a sleeper, was Pittsburgh at New York Jets. Because definitely like you're saying, like if the Jets do manage to actually put up this season and play with the talent that they've acquired, that could be a big show off game, especially having that at home and getting that extra little advantage from, and also that could be a game that Pittsburgh will be hurting to lose later on if they get stuck tied with Ravens or Bengals.
Yeah, it could be one of those trap games or one of those games that evens out the division at that point. So, all right, let's go on to Week 11, and one of the games that I put on my list, Vikings at Bears.
Okay.
And that's the Jared Allen revenge game. I know it might not be the biggest marquee game of that week, but I got to give some shout out to the Vikings. I don't think they'll be totally disrespectful. They are going to be the lowest of that division, but I think, and I'm still not sure if they actually win that game, but it'll be fun to see Jared Allen going after his former teammates.
I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I don't have that one, but I have Bears at Vikings because Jared Allen is actually going back to Minnesota.
Oh, okay, that's fair.
That's fair. That was my lone Vikings game also, the one in Week 17.
Yeah.
Okay, see, I just went with the first time they would be seeing each other.
Right.
I thought that would be,
but
what
I'll
gets
get into
played
my
up.
reasons why I picked that one there when we
Okay, but
get down to it.
who did I start off last time? Tyler,
All right.
you go ahead.
And this is another huge game, but it could possibly be that one of those false games. It's New England at Indianapolis.
Yep.
Old school versus new school.
Definitely one of the big games. The only thing I'm afraid of is, of course, in the playoffs last year, New England just stomped on Indianapolis. But hopefully, being at Indianapolis this time, it'll be a more even matchup.
Costa.
There were a couple ones. The one I'll say, I'm going to say Bengals at Saints was one I put on my list because, I've already mentioned before, Bengals are one of those teams that we look at, that could potentially regress. And at this point in the season, I can kind of imagine the Bengals, still hanging on to, a playoff position or maybe being on the outskirts or whatever. And a game against, it's tough to win very tough to win in New Orleans. Like outside of Seattle, New Orleans is probably one of the toughest places to win.
That's why I had a very tough time putting any Saints home games on my list of
Right. So, but this very well, even though there would still be a handful of games after this one for the Bengals, this could prove to be one that might put them away.
Sure.
Because it's a tough matchup on the road, and they don't have really any divisional games left outside of one. So, this could be a make it or break it game for the Bengals at this point in the season. So that's why I kind of have that on there.
Okay, and I put Eagles at Packers.
Yep, that was my other one
on the list. Yep, just you got to go with the Aaron Rodgers versus the Chip Kelly, Nick Foles offense. It's going to be interesting to watch, and the Packers have a better defense than I think shows up statistically a lot of times. They're a very turnover-based defense. They'll bend a lot, but but you have to be kind of good to actually get them to really break.
Right.
And then when in the crucial times they tend to make plays. So that I think would be interesting to see against the Eagles offense.
Actually,
and we covered everything. That was the last one on my list.
I actually had two more games that haven't been mentioned yet. San Francisco at Giants.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is going all the way over West Coast, and of course that's a rematch of their divisional, was it divisional or was it?
It was championship.
Championship.
2 years ago.
Yeah. 2 years ago.
2.
Yeah, when the Giants went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and of course, again, if the Giants manage to get back to more of that form, that could be a really competitive game.
That's true.
And then another game, and actually I think even last year that was a close game if I remember correctly. And the other game we have is a sleeper game, Tampa Bay versus Washington.
That should be interesting.
You have two teams that have the potential to have really get really fast high power starts, and that could be make a break game for one of them.
True.
I just have one other sleeper game for Week 11, and that's Lions at Cardinals.
Okay. That could be very fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean both teams have good defenses. Both teams have good passing games. So two evenly matched teams going head to head again, and again two teams that'll be fighting very hard for positioning in the NFC. So that could be another kind of like decisive game that could shape the playoff race.
Okay. So moving on to Week 12, Costa, what you got?
I am going. There are a lot. There are a lot of good ones. It's kind of tough to pick.
That week.
Yeah. I am going to.
Juicy like steak. I'm hungry now. Go on.
Geez, I don't know which one I want to pick. For this week, I'm going to go with Lions at Patriots.
Okay.
With that one, I mean, there were a lot of good ones, but I'm saying Lions at Patriots. Again, the Lions are going to be so interesting to watch this year, just kind of like the Redskins, one of those NFC teams that could really kind of break out and really mix things up.
I'm worried about it being the Patriots' home game.
Yeah,
but otherwise I would agree.
Even though it's at home, but this could really be, again, this is one of those games where if you are the real deal, you have to show up. I don't know how many times I've said that for so many teams already, but looking at it, you're like, if the Lions are a legitimate contender, I mean, not even contender, if they're going to be a legitimate playoff team, they have to be able to at least compete in these types of games. And, I mean, it'll be tough. I mean, you'll have Revis against Calvin Johnson. That's another really cool matchup that you'll want to watch. So I'll be keeping a close eye on that one.
All right, one of the ones I have that this is again obvious with us, Baltimore and New Orleans. That'll be a huge matchup. Two teams that likely by that point will be in the playoff mix, and huge divisional game in that. And then one I want to mention, and of course we've sort of talked about this before with the NFC East thing, but Dallas at Giants I think will be a big one that weekend.
Yep, I did. You basically named the two of them that were on my list. I worry about that Ravens at Saints game because it's Saints at home. On Monday
here's the key thing. Like something's got to give because yes, the Saints play very well at home, but this is after the Ravens bye week.
That's true.
And they are under Harbaugh. They are undefeated.
No,
they lost last season. Okay,
one.
All right. So they are 5-1 after the bye week under John Harbaugh. That's right. I forgot they lost last season.
How are they after bye weeks and an extra day? Because this is a Monday night game.
Well, that's true. So maybe extra day of rest. Who knows? Extra day of preparation.
That's gonna be a long time waiting for a Ravens game.
Something's got to give in that situation. It'll be a good game to watch.
Right.
No doubt.
Yeah. That's true. And then. The only other game I had on here for that week was the Bucks at the Bears.
Yep.
I had that one.
Yeah, did you?
Lovie Smith returning to Chicago.
Lovie Smith and Josh McCown.
Both
going back to Chicago.
A bit more interesting than Alex Smith going back to, or Alex Smith versus
I'll about to say, because McCown was just mainly a backup for the most part and started.
But he played well, though.
He played well.
I mean, he let Alshon Jeffrey get some numbers.
Trust me, I love McCown for that.
Oh yeah,
I had Alshon Jeffrey on a couple of my fantasy teams, so
and I picked up McCown like right as he was getting good.
No love lost for Josh McCown, but there's always the chance that McCown might not be the quarterback in that game. So, but we'll talk about that another time.
Okay.
And then I guess one other game I had a sleeper here was actually the Green Bay at Minnesota game, because I think that could be a game that if Minnesota it does show up and appear serious this season, that'll be a big one for them to try to aim for a wild card and get like the second seed in their division.
Okay.
And of course at Minnesota, gives them a bit of an advantage away from Green Bay.
My last game for Week 12, Redskins at 49ers. RG3 against Colin Kaepernick. That'll be an interesting two very similar quarterbacks playing against each other, and of course fast Redskins offense against the tough 49ers defense. So something's got to give in one of these cases. So we'll again have to keep a close eye on that one too.
Okay. So moving on to week 13. We're almost.
You're talking about juicy matchups. You said last week was juicy like steak. This is juicy like turkey.
Boo.
I tried.
Yeah, I mean, it was an okay.
I just want to start saying.
Can we just say all of Thanksgiving Day?
Exactly.
Just say all of Thanksgiving Day.
No, number one right here. Entire Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah, you have 3 big NFC divisional matchups.
Bold prediction for that week is that each 3 games are meaningful.
Well,
yeah. That's Seahawks and 49ers is the big one for the Thanksgiving night game. I mean, that's going to be a fantastic, bloody. That's the first time they're going to face each other in the season, so it's the first official rematch of the playoff game. So that's going to be, and obviously this is in the new 49ers stadium, the Candlestick. So
Levi Stadium.
Or Levi, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Levi.
The Candlestick is gone. It's
Levi.
I hate that compared to Candlestick
I think
Park.
someone made the joke, called it the Field of Jeans.
Awesome. Fantastic. Whoever thought of that joke. So, Costa, what do you got?
There are a couple other interesting ones. I'm gonna go with Patriots at Packers.
I had that one. Yep.
Of course, Brady against Rodgers. That'll. I mean, who wouldn't want to see that Super Bowl matchup? That would be, already an interesting game.
Oh, come on.
Well,
you gotta be kidding me, Tyler.
I mean,
He's tired of the Patriots.
Well,
okay, yeah, and that's fine, but the Packers.
But it's still, you have two
I get
of
the Packers and another team.
You have 2 of the best quarterbacks in the NFL going. And whenever you have a matchup like that, you always want to.
And as I read on NFL.com too, the last time we saw Patriots Packers, it was Matt Flynn versus Brady. Because Rodgers was hurt. So
and it's at Lambeau Field nonetheless.
That could happen again. Flynn's back on the team.
Yeah, that is true. And Aaron Rodgers does.
Wouldn't that be something if Rodgers somehow got hurt again and Matt Flynn had to play against the Patriots again?
But see, that's the problem. Rodgers is so good, but he does have an injury history.
Yeah,
He really does. Out of all the elite quarterbacks, he's the most prone to getting knocked out of a game.
Yep.
That's the only thing you can really say bad about Aaron Rodgers.
Yep.
That and he can be shut down at times. There have been times where teams have baffled him.
Yeah.
So one of my picks was New Orleans at Pittsburgh.
Yep, that was on my list as well.
Okay.
Because of course, taking New Orleans away from the dome and up into a nice rowdy Heinz Field, that'll be an interesting game. Of course, that could be a game that Pittsburgh will need to win in order to stay up in the division rankings if they're not there already.
That's true. That's true.
That'll really put a test on their aging secondary.
Yep. I also had Redskins at Colts.
Yep, that was on my list as well. That wraps up my list.
RG3 versus. So
if you want to talk about 2 quarterbacks that are connected at the hip, it's RG3 and Andrew Luck.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's one of the reasons why I hate these draft smoke screens and all that. Because I remember when that year was being when they were being drafted that year, and everybody was like, "Oh, the Colts might take RG3 instead," or blah blah blah.
I mean, and just imagine what's gonna happen this year when 5 quarterbacks are taken in the first round and
I've seen every sort of smokescreen possible. Texans might want Jadeveon Clowney. They might want Manziel. They don't want either of them. They think both of them suck.
They want Bortles. They want Bridgewater.
They want Bortles. They want Bridgewater. They want Carr. They want Garoppolo. They might get McCarron in round 2. I'm giving up. But anyway, I also had honorable mention of Cardinals at Falcons. I thought it would be an interesting game to watch.
My honorable mention that week was Cincinnati at Tampa Bay.
Oh, okay.
For similar reasons we talked about before, both are 2 teams that could really make some noise by that point of the year.
Cool. All right, so now on to week 14 in nearing the home stretch of this season and the stretch of this show.
Yeah.
This episode.
This episode's been a bit of a stretch, but thanks for hanging tough with us.
It's the NFL schedule release.
Exactly.
You have to expect a big episode.
Yeah.
For big events.
I mean, Total Access had a 3-hour show for this.
Exactly. Come on, man. I watched part of that. That was fun.
We're almost 2/3 of the way there.
Okay, so let's get through this. So, Costa, give us one for week 14.
I mean, Seahawks at Eagles.
Okay.
was one that
Not one I had on, but yeah.
that one popped out to me almost right away when I looked at it because it's a rather sparse week 14. Like there are a couple interesting matches, but Seahawks Eagles was the one that stuck out the most to me because if the Eagles, because at this point in the season, week 14, they're either in it or they're not, So if they're still in it and Seattle comes rolling in, this is another chance to kind of solidify themselves. It's not Seattle, so it's a perfect opportunity for the Eagles to try and take advantage if they're still in the playoff hunt at this point.
All right, for me, New England and San Diego. As I mentioned before,
Okay.
I always look for those long road trips for one team to go to the other, especially a strong team in New England goes to a team like San Diego that can be a bit of a wild card. They can play well sometimes, they can play poorly. But this is a game that if San Diego comes out full force and New England isn't ready for them, they could lose the game there, and that could cost them like a home field advantage later on.
Okay, yeah, that's a fair point. I had Steelers at Bengals as one of the interesting matches because once again, this is one of the few divisional battles near the end of the season. It could mean nothing by this point, or it could mean everything, depending on how everything shapes up. And then, like for example, like last year when the Bengals had a chance to put the AFC North away early and they dropped against the Steelers. That it could very well happen again. That's why I think that'll be an interesting match. And it's Steelers at the Bengals, so I think the Bengals will be motivated to play well. It's just a matter of will they overcome that hump that they've been facing the last few years of beating the competition that they need to beat at the times that they need to beat them, and that's going to be one of those games.
I have one sleeper game for Week 14 I want to mention. Colts at Browns. And here's
you
why.
Are on this Browns.
Oh no. Here's the thing. The Browns, like, I'm not expecting a lot out of them, but given everything they've done so far and what they could do in the draft, the Browns very well could position themselves to surprise some people. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Okay. I mean, we're talking about the Bengals could potentially be regressing this season. Will the Steelers' age actually catch up to them? So who knows? Maybe the Browns do kind of take advantage of those things, and maybe they are somehow in the mix. Maybe. And at this point in the season, if they're even at 500 at this point, which again I know, but I'm just saying if it's still a possibility, and the Colts, of course, being the favorites to win the AFC South and being making it to the playoffs. It could potentially build up to be a big game.
An interesting thing with the Browns, if Manziel does end up falling to the Browns, it instantly makes their games more interesting.
Well, exactly. Could you imagine Andrew Luck against Johnny Manziel?
Right,
Another whole reason to watch.
Right.
So
what were you gonna say?
I'll make you feel a bit better with my super pick, which is actually Houston at Jacksonville. And the reason I picked that, though...
I don't have a single Jaguars game on my list.
This is my sole Jaguars game, and the reason I picked that one is because 2 years ago, when Houston was really strong, and then they just fall into the trap game against Jacksonville, and that I think that cost them a seeding, and so I think a similar thing could happen here. Like this could be a trap game for Houston, especially at Jacksonville.
Okay, I had some matchups that weren't mentioned so far. Bucks at Lions, I thought would be an interesting game at that point. I guess for all the reasons we've mentioned about Lions and the Buccaneers. And then also Falcons at Packers, I thought would be interesting because two high-profile quarterbacks, Matt Ryan versus Aaron Rodgers. Hopefully, if they're both healthy, and if both their teams are competitive at that point of the season, that would also be at least an entertaining game to watch. At least points going around, and it would be. A nice fantasy game, at least. So, are we good with 14? On to 15. Yep. So, let me launch my first one for 15. Or what did you
give us the big one. Just lead us off with the big one for week 15.
The big one?
Give us the big one.
Which one is that, Costa?
49ers and Seahawks.
Yeah, okay. I had that as my honorable mention. Because we already had a 49ers
I had a
Seahawks
thing I put lower down because although that's a big rivalry, 49ers have not played that great when at Seattle. The divisional game was an exception, but before that, they've gotten blown out when they play at Seattle. So I put that level my expectations for that game.
Yeah, I did have 49ers at Seahawks listed as an honorable mention, but I mean for the reasons Tyler mentioned, which are all pretty valid in my view as well. And then what I thought would be interesting would be Broncos at Chargers.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was the top of my list.
Yeah, week
I had
15's got a lot of key divisional matchups
Yeah.
at this point late in the season, but there was one non-divisional matchup that I had on my list that could potentially be worth
What was that?
Saints at Bears.
Yep, I had that
Yep,
too.
same here.
I mean, because
Yeah,
all the
there
other
you
ones
go.
I had were divisional matchups. Texans at Colts. If the Texans turn things around, I mean, who knows? What if the Colts come out flat? What if they don't necessarily run away with the division and the Texans turn things around? I mean, that could be a game where, I mean, who knows? I wouldn't put it out. The Texans could be like the Chiefs, except the
It's
Colts.
possible.
But I don't put the Colts at the same level as the Broncos. I would not expect the Colts to nearly run away with the division
absolutely not.
like they did. But I mean, this could be a very meaningful game late in the season.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Tyler, what do you have?
So you actually said all my top picks. So I'll go ahead and say my stupid pick for this week, which was Jets at Tennessee, because last year Tennessee got close to almost, they were like the step below being in the wild card mix. So that could be a game that that could have wild card implications. Maybe not just for them, but for other teams have to go through all those tie-breaking scenarios, and a win either way could cause another team to get the advantage.
And also Calvin Johnson against the
Oh
Titans.
yeah, that too.
Yeah, there you go.
Another revenge game.
Almost forgot about that part.
I also have Cowboys at Eagles because
another divisional
right,
matchup.
exactly. It's a divisional matchup, and plus it's in week 15, not 17. So that means the Cowboys will probably win it because their season hopes are probably on the line in that game. And then, of course, they'll lose it at the end. But I really don't think the Cowboys do anything different. This year.
You know what's really funny, though? They showed on NFL Network, I think it was, what's his name, Nate Silver? Or whatever. Or what's it?
Mike Silver?
Mike Silver, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Mike Silver. He had a thing of like, are the Cowboys going to go 8-8 for like the fourth year in a row or whatever?
Oh, yeah,
He's like,
they will.
and he brings up their schedule. He's like, I think he has them at 8-4, and he's like, lost to finish the season.
I don't think that was Silver, but yes, I do.
No,
remember seeing
because
that.
it was him, because he had the schedule and like little thing. He was like
okay.
writing
Yeah,
WL
he just
WL.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
They just bottled him out like right in the
Yeah,
second half
and-
of the season. I don't see that happening. I'm sorry.
No,
I
no.
don't see that happening at all. The funny thing about Mike Silver is the fact that he got a job on the NFL Network basically right after that Fail Mary game.
Yeah.
And after everybody saw him cuss on live TV. But anyway, that's a sidetrack. So
Yeah.
But I agree with you though. So Cowboys at Eagles. The Cowboys are probably going to be sucking on air to try to keep their playoff hopes alive. So I think they'll pull through with that one, and they'll make that interesting. Otherwise, that was all mine mentioned. So,
Yep.
okay, here we are. The last. This is depressing. Even just talking about the last 2 weeks of an NFL season, and we haven't even started the season yet. So, week 16. Tyler, why don't you give us your top?
Ooh, let's just go ahead and jump in with this. Denver at Cincinnati.
There you go.
Because of course,
Yep.
away game for Denver. This could be one, and late in the season they might have already tied up one of the playoff spots, so they might not have too much to play for. So that could be a game that Cincinnati could come in and steal from them and possibly use to get like a last minute boost to go to fight for that AFC North crown.
That's fair. Costa.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of, you have a handful of divisional matchups.
Yeah. I think all of mine are divisional.
Yeah.
No, except
couple
that Broncos Bengals.
Yeah, I mean,
Good.
just quickly mention the one. There are two other non-divisional matchups I have on my list. Chargers at
Actually, all mine are
49ers.
non-divisional.
Chargers
Oh,
at
yeah,
49ers
I
is
had
one I
those.
had.
Chargers,
And
49ers.
then
Should be interesting.
Colts at Cowboys
Yep.
was another
Also
one.
had that one.
But the divisional matchup I'm gonna focus on mostly is Falcons at Saints.
Oh, okay.
Because again,
I have that one on my
the
list,
Falcons are due for a bounce back
Yeah.
season, and
And they play the Saints well at home too.
They
They're
do.
one of the few teams that do.
and on top of that, though, as I said, if any one team in the NFC South is going to compete with the Saints this year, I think it's going to be the Falcons. Because
do agree.
I don't expect a whole lot from the Panthers this season. They could still remain competitive, and and maybe split the season series with a few of the teams in the division.
Mm-hmm. They'll steal one or two.
They'll steal one or two. The Buccaneers, of course, we've mentioned are very well improved, like on paper, so they could mix things up. But I think the Falcons will be the team at the end of the season that's kind of like hanging tough with the Saints and can end up being a division decider late in the season.
Yep, fair enough. I had Jets Patriots.
Of course.
That week. It would also be a very fun game to watch.
And it could be very similar to what Tyler was saying, where maybe the Patriots have wrapped up a seed.
That's true. It could be.
And so maybe that game might not nearly mean as much. But if the Jets are playing well, then it could mean everything.
Right, and also a lot of it too is also again the Michael Vick factor.
Mm-hmm.
If he's still the quarterback at that time, we have it's Mike Vick versus Brady.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool. And then honorable mentions, I put Eagles at Redskins.
Of course, yep.
Yeah, because we're getting into that late NFC East surge. 49ers at Cardinals.
Is it Cardinal?
Or Cardinals 49ers. I'm not sure.
Wait, was it Cardinal? Did I have a typo? Because I have Chargers. Is it Cardinals? I have a typo. I have Chargers.
Wait. Oh, if that's what you're asking, let me check.
Week 6.
Maybe I wrote that down wrong. That might be my fault.
Chargers at 49ers.
Chargers at 49ers, yeah.
Okay, never mind. I wrote that down wrong. Never mind.
I had that game on my list.
Yeah.
As one of the more interesting. And then just another divisional matchup to throw out there: Lions at Bears.
Okay. Oh my. I'm sorry. I had to do it. All of you who are doing that to me right now, I'm sorry. That's the kind of person I am.
All right.
I will strike a reference when needed.
Moving on.
Wrap up.
Does that wrap up week 16?
In week 17, divisional matchups galore.
Oh, galore. Okay. Who wants to? Somebody lead this one off.
Oh,
I forget
man.
who.
Costa,
go ahead.
I mean, honestly, you have the two NFC East match: Cowboys at Redskins, Eagles at Giants. Those two games will probably be the most important games.
Yep.
Of at the end of the season, one
of them's probably going to end up being the Sunday night game again.
Oh,
could end up being the Cowboys again.
It's gonna be the Cowboys.
I mean, it's gonna be absolutely ridiculous. Hopefully, Cowboys fans are hoping that they're not 8-7 or 7-8 or whatever coming into this game. That maybe they have 9 or 10 wins at this point in the season.
Those poor.
And then of course Eagles. This whole division's a toss-up, and every team is going to be within just a game or two of each other. It's going to be absolutely ridiculous every single year.
Mm-hmm.
Every single year.
Yep. I did have Cowboys at Redskins. As I'm looking at my notes now, it says Cardinals versus 49ers.
Yes.
Okay. So maybe that's what I got wrong.
Yes.
Okay.
You looked a week ahead.
Yeah, exactly. And apparently I swamped them. I switched them by accident because I wrote 49ers at Cardinals in my honorable mention notes. But anyway, so Cardinals, 49ers, going to be an interesting game. I had Lions at Packers as an honorable mention.
Yep, of course.
And Bengals at Steelers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Also had that one.
That'll be the big one to possibly decide the division
Or it could mean nothing.
Or it could be
nothing. I mean,
it could be absolutely nothing.
As an honorable mention, I have Browns at Ravens on mine, just because it could be a thing where the AFC North again, if the but this is more so for the Ravens, saying if the division is close, like we're expecting it to be, if the Steelers are the Steelers and they remain competitive and the Bengals don't regress too much and the Ravens improve by a couple games from last season, then this game very well could have, AFC North division winner implications.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, because as I said, we can't anticipate if the Ravens will be I don't know,
Well, all of this is based on speculation
right.
of what could happen.
Right. I mean, it very easily, who knows, maybe the Bengals, Steelers, or Ravens, maybe one of those teams locks up the division before Week 17 and the game means nothing. But more than likely, if the AFC North plays out like it has in past seasons, this game will mean something at the end of the year.
Tyler?
You pretty much said the main stuff I had.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say things I had as another one of my sleep picks was Minnesota at Chicago. That could be game.
No, it's the other way around. It's Chicago at Minnesota.
Sorry, man. Yeah. Even more exciting for Minnesota then.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
And that could be a similar game where either Minnesota comes up and could be a wild card, or Minnesota could be a spoiler for Chicago's playoff hopes.
I mean, yeah, Minnesota is one of those teams when I look at them, it's like you can't fully commit to the idea of them being competitive in that division. They've got Adrian Peterson, which is great, best running back in the league. And then you have Cordarrelle Patterson, who's a rising young wide receiver. So they've got a couple guys in that offense. The quarterback position's kind of iffy. They'll probably address it in the draft. I mean, their defense is kind of shaky. That's where I lose.
But that's where Mike Zimmer can come in, though.
Right.
That's where his expertise would.
Right. So
serve.
the idea is, like, obviously since they don't have like guys on that defense that necessarily jump out, you're like, wow, that guy is a great defensive player. I mean, they lost their best defensive player.
They got rid of that guy.
Right. So it's one of those things where Mike Zimmer, maybe he might know how to better utilize those guys that they currently have and actually make something of that defense.
Yep.
But with the offenses that they have to compete with, all three teams, Bears, Packers, Lions, all have really good offenses. So I have a hard time believing that the Vikings will be there at week 17, but they could. You never know.
Well, and even if they're not like in a spot for a wild card, or if they're not playing for the playoffs, they'll be playing for themselves.
Well, they'll play the spoiler. They could easily win this game and maybe knock the Bears out of the playoffs.
Oh, sure.
Who knows?
Absolutely. And I could, like Tyler said, it's at Minnesota, so that could totally happen. And as we're wrapping this up now, that finishes week 17. And I mean, just as we look at it in general, this is going to be a very interesting year because the NFL has really played around with the schedule this year because they've been getting formulaic over the past few years. Divisional games in the middle, some at the beginning, some at the end. They've really changed that now this year. And then we have dual telecasts of Thursday night games, and we're going to have multiple Saturday games. And
another big thing is they completely dropped the whole idea where Fox would get NFC games and CBS.
Isn't that only for a few games though?
For a few games, but before it was strict.
Right.
They'd always do that, but now they're making it more open.
Right, which is a good thing because that only just helps the whole scope of NFL teams.
I will say that I thought it was kind of funny. Because we unfortunately we don't have enough time to really go into it, but I will say briefly, the NFL must really not like Oakland at all because it was so funny. Literally the day so the day before they released the schedule, Lamar Woodley comments and says, "I believe the Oakland Raiders are a playoff team." Oakland Raiders have the toughest schedule in the NFL. They have to play the Patriots, they have to play the 49ers, they have to play the Seahawks, and of course they have to play the Broncos twice.
Yeah.
And the Chargers twice, and so it figures the year they make all of these signings and everything, and they're starting to feel good about themselves.
Yeah.
They get the toughest schedule in the NFL.
That's true. They're still 1 or 2 years away.
They caught a tough break, but they'll be fun. They made all those changes, so who knows? Like maybe Lamar Woodley's onto something. Maybe he knows something that we don't know.
It's like the NFL schedule makers heard that and said, "Okay, fine, here you go."
Bam.
Prove that you're the playoff team that you say you are.
Well, they talk about how the people who are in charge of making the NFL schedule have like thousands of copies that were just completely shredded.
Yeah, I read that. It's got to be an interesting job. All right, well, that is it for our dissection and diagnosis and analysis of the NFL schedule for 2014. Should be a very exciting year.
Yep.
Next week's going to be even more exciting.
Exactly.
Mock drafts.
Roll out our mock drafts.
Yes, next week we are all going to predict what we think is going to happen in this year's NFL draft. We're probably all going to be wrong, but who cares?
And we're all going to fight over it.
No, we're going to be keeping track and see who was the most accurate in their picks.
Exactly. And if we're wrong, we're going to wear it like a badge.
And of course, if you've been following this podcast, you can already predict where we're going to start having disagreements.
Yep.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Probably in the very first pick.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think that's a pretty easy thing to predict there. So anyway, thank you for listening to this ultra fun-sized episode of Intentional Grounding. We're glad you listened in. We really hope you enjoyed it. You can follow us on Twitter at Intent Grounding. You can also subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. That's where you can also listen to our previous episodes. It's youtube.com/Intent Grounding, or just search us on YouTube. You can also find us on Facebook. Please like us, Intentional Grounding.
We are
could
everywhere.
we could actually fit our whole name into the Facebook group.
Exactly.
So anyway, please stay tuned for our next episode. We do the mock drafts like we said. Thanks for joining, everybody. See ya.
See ya.
See ya.